This is the Criterion Creeps podcast, and tonight we're talking about The Tin Drum from 1979, directed by Volker Schlondorff. The tagline for the film, RJ, a savage, sweeping epic of society in chaos.
Is it? Though?
Oscar is born in Germany in 1924 with an advanced intellect. Repulsed by the hypocrisy of adults and the irresponsibility of society, he refuses to grow older after his third birthday. RJ, how do you feel about magic realism?
Could you give me a secondary example or an alternative to what magic realism is?
Some might throw out Pan's Labyrinth as an example, but I would say magic realism, it's a spectrum that we're so fond of here on the podcast.
A spectrum. Well, I mean, that means there's this variety.
So historically speaking, I mean, magic realism has kind of more of like a I think literary and like art, like painting and stuff like that. Symbolism, like it's a broad range, but it seems like in a literary sense, and I believe the novel that this is based on has been described as like having like magic realism, and people lap that shit up. Right. But there's like degrees to it. Like there's like kind of more of a whimsical magic realism. Like say, I'd say like maybe Big Fish has that, the Tim Burton movie. Pan's Labyrinth has that. But then you start moving down like the European strain, which is going to be closer to, I don't know, a darker side of reality. Watching Tin Drum this week, I kept thinking of this one movie called Liolo, which is a French-Canadian movie, but is like very similar in kind of like these depictions of like it has like a whimsicalness, but it's not like a positive whimsy. It's like it's a macabre darkness about child and innocence, and like, hey, you know, kids play with dead cats all the time and like have sex with one another. That kind of like stark reality with like bizarre things involving animals being skinless or like, I don't know, it's a thing.
This is in Liolo?
Well, Liolo has, I'm just going to tell you, RJ, the film Liolo has the Tin Drum beat in all the categories that you will have umbrage with in Tin Drum. Liolo tops it out. Like Liolo just bugged me, and where Tin Drum is just kind of like, because we were watching this almost simultaneously, I think
so.
And when I see those tags on Letterboxd, I just go, "Oh, RJ, what's my favorite one?"
I think I was about half an hour ahead.
Horrifying Goblin Child.
Well, do you agree? Is that an appropriate take?
So it depended, because like at times I was like, "Is this child like? Is this child got like dwarfism?"
I got the scoop.
I know. I figured it out afterwards.
Okay.
But at the time, I was like, "What the fuck? Like, is this like that's weird? This is interesting because, man, where do you begin with the Tin Drum? Number one, this movie is not at all what I was expecting at all.
I agree.
So, like going into this, like I had not read anything about it. I just was like, okay, it's Volker Schlondorff, who's directed a lot of like kind of underdogs in the Creeps.
100%.
And like, in fact, it was like made some very good movies. And I was thinking, oh, Tin Drum. I read what this movie's about. This could be great. And then this movie is so different than his previous films that it really took me by surprise. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be like this, huh? It's going to be about mom eating raw fish and dying. It's going to have it's going to have fishing with horse heads. It's gonna have like young boys riding on top of their babysitter.
Yep.
Who turns into their stepmom. But that's not the first time or last time that's going to happen.
In what? In movies or in life?
In everything.
Okay.
Mario Altdorf with dyed blonde hair, which was bizarre. Maybe he's naturally a blonde.
That.
Yeah, that was odd. this movie's got a little bit of everything for people. It's got the movie kicks off. It's set in like what 1899 or something like that,
or so
with grandma drum. She's out in the field roasting potatoes, and some German soldiers, I think, are chasing down a Polish man who he desperately needs a place to hide. And then this lady takes I don't know, some pity on him and lets him hide under her dress. And of course they come looking for him, but of course he's like underneath her. But while he's underneath her, he's taking his penis out, RJ.
Excuse me?
And he's putting it in her vagina, and she in fact even climaxes. And you go, "Whoa, is this, as the kids say, problematic?" And then it turns out, she's cool, and now they're going to get married. That's the kind of world we're setting up. And there's this child, this child narrating these things.
Problematic, I believe, is what you would say, Jared.
We get this movie's 1979. This movie does not feel like it's from 1979.
It doesn't.
It feels actually very contemporary, like in the sense like it feels like a 90s European movie. Which, like, I don't know what that means, but it definitely like does not have it doesn't feel dated at all. It feels like a very like fully realized period piece with some additions, some accoutrements, like
some what, Jared?
Some like, sonic screaming attacks.
Yeah, that's one of the X-Men, isn't it?
Yeah,
Banshee?
Banshee. Oh, I was thinking about Banshee a lot watching this. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So, Grandma Drum and Grandpa Drum, they hang out for a little bit, but he's like an arsonist. That's just like kind of tossed out there. And eventually, the popo come upon him. He starts running across some logs to escape, and then
like Insomnia,
or like the. Was it the Loggers Waltz? Logjammers Waltz? I can't remember.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, so he's running away. He jumps to avoid gunfire because they're just going to mow him down. And then you never see him again. So it's like, did he just drown under the logs? Did he get away and just never come back because he couldn't? Who knows? So Mama Drum, she grows up, and she's in a relationship with two men. One, this Mario chud, and her cousin, because they're kissing cousins.
They are, and our protagonist describes it as it was a very endearing romance, and he said it was for a war-torn romance. He said it was idealistic or something like that. Yeah. I should mention too. So I dipped into the supplements, Jarrett.
Oh yeah.
And I watched the 1 hour interview with Volker Schlondorff. I don't know if you partook.
I did not.
The only reason I bring it up now is because that intro with the grandma roasting potatoes and the man on the horizon, John Ford style, Volker Schlondorff, he believes that is the high point of the film. He said this is the best frame of the film, and he's like, that's not what you want in a movie for the first scene to be the best frame. He's like, but it was, and he's like, it was kind of tough to meet the same level as that horizon shot.
The last shot of this movie echoes that first shot though, and is pretty good.
It does.
And it actually reminds me a lot of Ballad of a Soldier too.
It does.
Of this movie.
Yeah.
So, Mama's knocked up, and then we get the birth of Oscar, where we also get a homage to, or actually a precursor, I should say, to Lars von Trier's The Kingdom.
Oh,
and the great lineage of mutant fetuses and monster children. And you get a child like in a womb room that is like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is not the movie I was expecting. What is this?
Please describe that a little bit more, Jarrett, because I don't know if people fully understand the womb room.
The womb room. So it's just like this: the full-grown child of this movie, the kid who's playing Oscar in this, who's 11 or 12 years old.
He's 10 to 12 during filming is what they said.
So
yeah.
he's playing a baby. Like he's straight up playing a baby.
Yep.
And but they've like gooed him up and they put him into like a red lit kind of like piecemeal experimental theater womb, and they shoot him like he's like in it, and then they show him emerging through it like he's coming through carpet and cardboard, and then like there's like even shutters for the curtains as he emerges out of the womb. And then there's like it's hit from his perspective. He sees the lights for the first time. It's all being narrated, and then he gets put into the wash basin and mentions how he wants to go back into the womb, but the placenta's already been cut, so it's too late. He can't get back in anymore. Done deal. And then but you have like it's not a baby. It's Oscar the man child.
It's like 11-year-old Oscar with a bald cap on, covered in fake like
embryonic fluid and afterbirth.
Afterbirth.
Yeah, I guess it's like it's birth. It's because afterbirth comes after. So this is this is just regular old birth.
Birthing. Well, I mean, during birth, Jarrett, there's a lot of fluids and there's a lot of like ripping and tearing. So I mean, some of it could just be regular old like flesh. You know,
it's a crimson wash.
Sure, that's a way you could describe that.
Yeah. So this kid's like kind of very disappointed already, as we all are. Again, this reminds me of the Belgian horror film Baxter about the killer dog, because that movie also is like told from a first-person perspective. I feel like Tin Drum is a very important movie in its contribution to like an entire like venue of European cinema that I'm actually quite fond of. But then you have the Tin Drum, which just seems so at odds in a lot of ways. Because at times this feels like a Werner Herzog movie, particularly when the little people start showing up, and little people in Nazi outfits and whatnot, and clowns and performers like playing the glass. So anyway, little kid Oscar, he's kind of like, I don't know, what's up with this kid? He's 3 years old and he's walking around doing his thing. And he's like underfoot watching his mom and cousin like I don't know, play footsie, some like serious hardcore footsie under the table. They're getting very good at like playing this relationship up, and like it's like kind of like alluded to that like this kid is probably the cousin's kid. But apparently this kid is so revolted by adulthood that he makes himself stop aging.
Yes, he does.
And this is kind of just treated as like, oh yeah, that happens. That happens sometimes.
But have you not done that?
I didn't. I did not do it. Yeah.
I mean, that feels more like an error on your end.
Maybe it is. So he like seals the deal by. Does he actually throw himself down the stairs?
Well, in the story, he does. In actuality, they put him on the camera dolly, and they just kind of backed up with him pretending. Right. But yeah, like in this,
I'm assuming they didn't like shove the child down the steps.
Well, Volker Schlondorff describes that scene. He's like, well, we couldn't do CGI, and he said, and we couldn't get a stuntman. He's like, if we had thrown the child down the stairs, there was a chance he could break an arm or something. He's like, so we had to find out something different. So I think he actually did consider it at one point. He's like, what would be the harm if we threw this kid down the stairs?
Does Oscar have the drum yet at this point?
Yeah, he sets it down.
Okay. Yeah, so he has so he's got his drum. He's
promised it on his 3rd birthday, and he's 3 when he decides to hurl himself down the stairs to stop his development.
Yeah. So yeah, he comes like non-communicative, like he speaks very sparingly. There's a nice like little dance number with Rasputin and like his harem of ladies. You get some very nice Rubenesque women, some very full-bodied women. Rubenesque maybe too much, but yeah, just like no bottoms. You're like, wow, this is all in Oscar's head, huh? this is what's going on. And like all the moms are like really into Rasputin. They're like, oh man.
I mean, they still are, Jer.
Yeah.
Did you know, isn't Rasputin's dong in like a jar on display in some like Russian museum or something?
I think that...
Is that a wives' tale?
I don't know if it is true, because I thought about that. Giant dong.
Giant dong.
Rasputin penis.
Okay. Tell me what you find here, because I'm highly invested.
The preserved penis of Gregory Rasputin.
Mm-hmm.
Click to see, not safe for work. So there's like something claiming to be his a large member.
Maybe it's just an old hot dog.
Something I don't think. What? Something about DNA testing is confirmed. It is a sea cucumber.
Well, that's disappointing. Well, I mean, okay. Well, you can't win them all, but whatever.
You can't
in
win
our
them all.
in our dreams, it will always be the real thing.
It's kind of like Jack Nicholson spilling that chili. It's that's the magic realism I want to be in.
You want to be in the world where that wasn't on the Onion, and that was in a legitimate actuality.
Yeah, it is real.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
It's marvelous realism.
Was it a bread bowl or was it a Tupperware that he was eating his chili?
Tupperware, my friend.
Bread bowl wouldn't have lasted transit, probably. No. You would have enjoyed it more, though.
Yeah. So anywho,
Tin Drum.
So Tin Drum. So the kid stops growing up, and like we get these big time jumps now, and we also have the backdrop of the rise of Nazis. At the be early on, it's Poland, right? That were Danzig, Glenn Danzig's house in his hometown.
Glenn Danzig himself?
Yeah.
What was that movie he just made?
Veronica.
Veronica.
Yeah.
Okay. So same guy, hey?
Yeah. Same
Crazy.
guy. Same. I know links.
Who knew Volker Schlondorff was a big Danzig fan? Not me.
Not you.
Not me. Oh.
Yeah, so he goes to the circus, and he sees some little people, and he's like, "Whoa, this is my style," and he has a chat with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, because he's like, I did the same thing, buddy. I decided I wanted to stop growing too.
Yeah, I think there's some mention of hard M's and things of that nature, and then there's also mention of how he fits into that realm, but he's not, or so. I don't know. It's kind of strange, like the actual actor and stuff, like Volk. I call him Volk. He's talking about how they needed to find either. Or someone with a medical condition, and that happened to be the kid that they did find. It's just kind of like by chance he asked a doctor. He's like, is there such a thing as someone who doesn't grow up? And they're like, well, we got one right now, friend. And he was like, really?
We caught one.
That's how he tells the story. He's like, we got one right now, and he's like, and he scoops him up.
Bring him out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
sure.
There's like such a charming scene though, of like when you first see the Nazis march, it's like there's a little group of them, and they're like trumpeted around with their little banners, and there's people that are just going out and tossing rocks at them. And he'd go, "Oh, that's so sweet." I remember the days like that, where that would be the case still.
To throw rocks at people?
At Nazis. Like actual Nazi people.
Yeah, rocks and tomatoes, I think, but you don't want to waste a tomato nowadays. Things as tight as they are.
No one takes it seriously,
No.
We get this like little bit where you get to see it because this kid, this Oscar, he's banging his goddamn tin drum all the time. He goes to school, he's banging his drum. His teacher's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Oh, RJ, I'm forgetting about the sonic scream. So apparently, while like he's like not only stopped growing, he also has just happened to develop like a sonic attack that he can like he just busts out like liberally whenever he wants. And just shatters glass. It's like so fucking funny. Like they're like, because you're like, what? To what end? To what end?
To what end, indeed, Jarrett? Because it kind of becomes forgotten halfway through the movie.
Yeah, he's got a little special power.
Sure. And then, so did you find there was any resolution to his Banshee-esque scream?
Nope.
Okay.
So there's like on Twitter, there's like an account. It's like Magic Realism Bot, and it just spits out things like this. I'll pull it up here. Magic Realism Bot. Okay. So every 4 hours, Magic Realism Bot produces a sentence.
Okay.
Like something like this. A doctor in Sri Lanka is famous for forgetting about motherhood.
Okay.
At 11 o'clock, a sentence is etched into an opal belonging to a Sumerian Maharaj. It reads, I like grains of sand.
Yeah.
In Silicon Valley, plums start raining from the sky. An angel is responsible.
Okay.
A shopkeeper makes a fortune trading in love.
Yeah. That sounds good. I like the sound of that.
An office manager draws a map which shows the location of every chimney in Paris.
I don't know why, but that one's funny.
This is a great literary tradition.
Sure.
It's like I'm a regular China Melville here. I'm a regular Salman Rushdie.
It's a deep cut. So how would you describe in a sentence Tin Drum then? A young boy in Poland never wants to grow up and develops sonic abilities?
Yeah, like, why not? That sounds like a great X-Men comic written by Howard Mackey.
Howard Mackey?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Mac Attack. So then you get like this. One thing I kind of appreciated was that the kid lives in a household where, they're taking down that picture of Beethoven and putting up a picture of Hitler. They're pro-Hitler. And it's kind of like left be like to its own devices because you're like, you know where this is going, folks. Because eventually it's like, oh, they're going to take your little your little person away and throw him into a treatment camp much later. And he's like, I can't do it. I can't let him take him. And when the Gestapo show up, those guys because they look like the bad guy from Raiders of the Lost Ark. They always do.
Even when this movie premiered, people were like, these guys look like the bad guys from Raiders. And other people went, from what? And they're like, oh, you'll see.
That movie doesn't exist yet.
Yet. A wink?
Let's talk about Gestapo tactics. So, yeah, then the Germans invade Poland.
Sure they do.
There's a defense of the bank made by cousin cuckold dad.
Post office?
Cuckolding dad, the post office. Yes.
You skirted over the detail that the mother became pregnant and then dies.
Oh, yeah.
Jarrett, which is an important plot point because the mother dies and then the actual father is in the turmoil. And then what is he left with,
He's left, the cuckold.
Yep. The blonde guy and the sister mom? Sister girlfriend mom?
Yeah, it's convoluted. Oh, but we also forgot all about the fishing scene on the beach.
Oh, you don't say, Jared.
There's like a horse head. Oh, but there's actually there's also the boiling the frogs, the skinning of the rabbit.
I found the boiling of the frogs pretty egregious because it's like they're actually boiling frogs. It's like that's pretty fucked up to do for like in general, but also just for a movie.
People have done it,
I'm sure they have. People have done worse stuff too, but I was like, just
on
for
this very
movie,
podcast, just for that one scene.
It's like you're gonna boil these frogs alive. I was like, I don't really care about frogs, but it was like that's kind of a fucked up thing to do for in general or for a movie. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. And then we get to the horse head, which I found to be one of the most revolting, disgusting things I think I've seen in the Criterion Collection so far. Not because just because it's like it honestly it just really grossed me out. I was like, ugh. Yeah. I was responding the way the mother was. I was like, that's fucking disgusting.
Oh man,
it really grossed me out. Apparently
it looks amazing though. Like, on a visual level, it's like, holy shit, that like what a raw image. RJ belongs in an art gallery because it's art. Art
isn't real, Jared. Art isn't real.
That horse head was real.
I got
those eels. The heads getting chopped off, and the little eel heads like mouthing.
I got the scoop from Volker on what what he believes the symbolism is. So I don't know if you want to add anything before you hear about. Do you want me to hit you with it?
Hit me.
So apparently that's in the book, and he like the writer was Gunter Grass, and he said
Yes.
Volker's like, I don't know where Gunter came up with that idea. He's like, but it's such a even Volker is like he's like it's such a like strong, upsetting image or something.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about like the mechanics of how they actually had to do it and how they had to make this horse head with the chamber, which is disgusting. But then he was talking about how the symbolism of it was that it was the mother discovering that she was pregnant and that she was afraid that inside her was going to be a monster like the eels, because in her eyes, Oscar was a monster.
I see.
So apparently that's what that scene means. It's that it was the mother discovering she was pregnant and feared that she would be creating another monster. Also, I don't know if you know this, but Volker says that Oscar is a caricature of fascism in himself. He's not the protagonist. He is actually the antagonist.
Well, see, that's interesting because, Big Roger Ebert, he wasn't a fan of this movie. Yeah. This movie won Cannes in 79 or for 79, I guess. And he was on the side. He's like, this kid sucks. Like he was like, he absolutely hated the kid. And he's like, I don't understand like what this movie's going for at all. And so when I was reading that, I went, no, this is very much what I expect RJ's feelings are going to be.
Well, apparently me and Ebert were the only ones who actually saw between the lines, because that's what Volker Schlondorff was intending. He was saying that Oscar was fascism. He's a caricature of it. And Hitler is the drum. And what was his quote? He drummed propaganda that was worthless tin. So apparently Oscar is fascism and the drum is Hitler. And not that you're not supposed to like him, but he is that's what the character represents.
What?
I thought he was a little shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But anyways, continue.
So anyways.
So we got the horse head scene. And
we got horse head in.
Really
Mom's like so horrified by this that she's like pregnant and she has like the kind of like the mania where she's eating.
Yeah.
And then she dies, and then Germany invades, and cousin dies, and he gets taken away off camera. I think there's supposed to be an indication that he's filmed because their backs they're being faced against the wall, and you probably can assume what happens next. And then time jump to good times, as they say. You know, we got like a montage of like, what's happening to the Jewish people? Oh, they're just poisoning themselves so they don't get taken away, and worse things happening to them in some cases. And then Oscar joins he's like, does he run away from home kind of? Or he's like, hits the road. He meets up with like the Nazi little people.
Well, first he does try to stay with stepdad, who is alleged real dad. And then there's the nanny who he has a love affair with, Oscar himself, because at the time he's technically 16, even though he's actually 10. So he has a love affair with her, but she's also having an affair with the actual man of the house. And then when Oscar comes about it and sees what's going on,
attacks him with the drum.
He attacks him with the drum in a weirdly like erotic attack,
smashing it down on his ass.
And I was very confused. I was like, what did he hope to achieve by that? Whatever.
He wanted him to stop.
And he did. Well, so I guess he was
successful.
He was successful. Yeah, so that happens. And then after that, he runs into the leader of the little circus brigade that he met earlier.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And like, he met that guy at the circus. He was the leader of that little like troop of people. And that guy talks to Oscar, and he's like, our kind are never in the crowd. He's like, our kind deserve the center stage or something like that. And then he runs into him later, and that guy's like, he's like one of the top performers for the Nazi people, like the Nazi conventions, because the Nazis just can't get enough of the little people, Jared.
They love it.
So he's like,
it's like wrestling fans.
Exactly. So they're actually in good standing with the Nazis, and so that's Oscar joins them that way.
You get to see Hitler's arm at one point.
Yes, you do.
And his first-person view as he walks up to give a speech. And then kid comes back and kind of like rejoins the family with his like his son, quote, his baby son. And they're running a shop now. They've taken over from a Jewish family that's left. They're just gone. Where did they go? Nobody knows. But now I can be a successful shopkeep.
Sure.
And until the Eastern Front starts to fall, and then Russia shows up. And there's one thing Russia likes to do. It's like they like to fuck shit up.
Sure.
And it's like, what's that? You're a woman? Time for rape. And that's how it goes. And you're like, hey, who's this guy? Who's this like Mongolian man that's hanging out? And you're like, oh yeah, we're all in it together, comrade. I did like the delicious irony, RJ. Irony. I don't know if it's irony. God. Maybe it's not. Of going to like hide your Nazi pin and going to swallowing it to conceal it, choking on it, and then being gunned down to hide your nature.
I feel like that was the wrong move. It's like you didn't have to swallow that. You could just just not shown it, right?
Nope. Put it in a pocket, but you had to keep your hands up. But you got gunned down anyway. His corpse held up pretty good though. Sure it did. And then a man leaving one of the camps shows up out of his mind to reclaim the family business.
The crypt keeper guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. He shows up a couple times, right? In his like top hat and his suit that's a little too short.
Well, there's two different guys. There's the hobo, like top
that's
hat.
Who I'm
he's like a tramp. He's a tramp. And then there's like the Jewish man who sees his family everywhere.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, oh yeah, but even though he acknowledges, oh yeah, they died, and he was like a Son of Saul character who is like, yeah, I cleaned the oven and I cleaned the chambers and stuff like that with the bleach, and you're like, oh. So anyway, they go bury Mario Waldorf, and that's when the kid decides, hey, I'm going to grow up. And his little brother / son, he's just throwing rocks at shit, being a little piece of shit too. And he hits his own dad in the back of the head. He falls into the grave. They scoop him up and they bandage his head up. He's not dead, but he's pretty messed up, and they have him in a wheelbarrow.
There's actually Volker Schlondorff is talking about that, and it's like hilariously mean. He's like, now we have him. He's a horrible hunchback, and he's a real piece of shit loser. Like I'm not even exaggerating that much. He doesn't say piece of shit, but he's like, he's a real loser. And it's like, look at him now. And it just lingers on the shot of him in the wheelbarrow, and you're like, oh. Like it's hilariously mean at how like harsh it comes off. But yeah, continue.
Well, that's like the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And then it wraps up, and it kind of begins how it ends. In the scenic kind of rural setting of a woman doing potato business, a peasant lady. Oh yeah, the grandma shows up periodically in little bits and pieces throughout the movie as well.
I think she was the best part.
So anyway, Tin Drum. I guess for like a 2-hour and 40-minute affair, it goes by at a fine enough pace. But at the end of the day, I don't know. It didn't wow me, despite its there's like things I liked about this movie, but I guess like my expectations were maybe high for old Volker, who's like obviously in this movie as well displaying some real technical chops. This movie looks amazing. Production values, costumes, great. The music, it was a little odd at times, a little kind of a distracting element for me. Right. But I am very interested to hear you talk about the Tin Drum, RJ, ultimately.
You'd like to hear me talk about the Tin Drum?
I would.
All right. This fucking little goblin troll. Like, as soon as the delivery scene where it's just an actual full grown kid, I was like, what is, because that, up to that point, like the 20 minutes up to that, I was like, this movie's pretty good. I was like, I like the production. I was like, it looks great. I was like, it's pre-World War II. Things are going good. And then as soon as you see a 10-year-old dressed up to be like a newborn baby, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what is this movie? And it totally, I think a lot of it changes from there because I was totally caught off guard too, Jarrett.
Yeah.
So you see that, and then as things start to progress, it gets like more and more kind of like wacky. And I think I guess that magical realism stuff, that's a good way to kind of describe it. But it's definitely just wacky. Like him screaming to break shit. I was like, all right. And then like later his son, like it doesn't get brought up again until he's impressing his soon to be wife, and he does the sonic heart into the glass. And I was like, has he refined this ability to the point where he can like draw with it?
Oh yeah, he gets a girlfriend. I forgot about her too.
He marries her, and then girlfriend just can't go without her cup of Joe, and I mean we all know how that ends. So you get to like that stuff, and I was still on board. I was like, all right. I was like, it's bizarre what's going on, but you know, whatever. I like Big Fish by Tim Burton. I was like, yeah, I was getting to the wacky stuff.
You like that Shape of Water?
Well, you know, but so I was still on board with
Uncle
it.
Boon Me, who can recall his past lives.
Uncle Boon Me, who can. I haven't seen that one, Jared,
okay,
but I've heard of it. It was definitely
the Cobbler, starring Adam Sandler.
That's a good one. I'd watch that before the Tin Drum.
Birdman. See, the Oscars really liked their magic realism.
Well, and I know you talked about the accolades that this movie got, but apparently when it came out, Volker was talking about how they premiered it, or they screened it for like the whatever, like the actual guiding thing. It was like Empire Artists or something like that, where it's like they were the people who like produced movies or something. And the first reactions, they all told him, they're like, why did you make this? This isn't a film. This is horrible, and you should not show this to other people. And he was like, okay.
Have you looked at the original film poster?
No, I haven't. I'll check it out.
Okay, I'll send it your way.
Okay. So apparently people did not like this at first either, because they were kind of like, what is this, man? And it was just like one producer who kind of believed in him. And then the author, okay, let's check this out. Tin Drum film. Oh my God. So it's him playing the drum at, I think, the Nazi parade.
Yeah.
Or up in the bell tower.
I think in the bell tower.
Yeah, up in the bell tower. Yeah, see, this thing's got lots going on, Jarrett. A lot of irons in the fire, my man. So you got lots of weird stuff. I definitely like one of the places where it really lost me was the frog scene, because I know I talk about this stuff a lot, but even for this movie, I was like, there's a lot of like whimsy in this thing, and I was like, to throw something like so cruel like that in here, I was like, what's the point even? And then like another point is it shows like how cruel the kids are, and it's like I get that, but I was like, I feel like there's better ways to do that, where you don't have to have this elaborate setup based on like symbolism or metaphors or something. So that's where it started to lose me. And then pretty soon after, we get the horse head scene, and it's like I said, I found that thing like utterly revolting. Like it really grossed me out so much. I was like, my God, is that disgusting? So after that, like I still paid attention. I just like, I was like, this movie, I was like, I don't even know what this fucking thing is anymore. I was so like, I was just thrown for such a loop. I was like, what even is this thing? I thought Oscar was a real shit, like a real annoying little kid who he's just like, I'm with Roger Ebert. I think Oscar's a real piece of shit. He like doesn't want to give up his drum. He's making everyone mad, and I was like, well, he's just a little shit, Jared.
He's crap.
He's crap. There are things that I think are done really well in this movie. Like I do think that it looks great. And then Volker himself talks about like a lot of his influences and like dudes he hung out with, which were like Buñuel, Jacques Tati, and then like some other like lots of like Criterion alumni guys. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So you hear about those guys, and he also was talking about one of his like his number one like not producer but like set guy, production assistant or something, was a guy who grew up in Poland at this time and went to Auschwitz. So he was like Volker basically is like, I just ran everything by this guy, and if he said it was good, we would run with it, and if he said we needed to change it, we would do it like that. So I think that's maybe why there's some authenticity to some of what's going on. In terms of metaphors and symbolism, I'm like on the fence about it. I'm of two minds where it's like, I do think they do some of it well, but I do think some of it's also pretty heavy handed. And it's like, I know there's all these movies that like make metaphors or symbolism out of fascism. I'm like, I don't know if it's like, I don't know, man. It doesn't really work for me. And Volker was talking about a different place that made a symbolic movie of fascism. It wasn't Salo. It was something else. And he was like, I really needed to make the German version of that. And I was like, all right, okay. But anyways, that stuff, like, it's really hit and miss with me. And then one of the things I think I do like some of the kind of walk-in characters. Like, I think the toy maker character, he's good. I do like the tramp character. I think he's good. But then you have other characters like the potato pedophile. And I was like, why? I was like, how does this guy fit into this? Like the scoutmaster, he's like really into potatoes. And then they're like, and then we found out he was a pedophile and he killed himself.
Oh my God.
And you're kind of
like, I don't even remember that. Exactly. Like, because there's a lot of like things like that where, and I can see people really liking that. Like, hey, I like Forrest Gump as much as the next person, Jarrett. And are you saying you disagree with Charles Champlin of the Los Angeles Times, who declared that it was like, quote, like few films since Citizen Kane, a combination of stunning logistics and technique and of humanistic content that is terrifically affecting?
I wouldn't use most of those words or any of them to describe this. Volker himself describes it as slapstick dark comedy. Yeah, so he thought this thing was just straight up comedy. He's like, I never intended it to be serious.
The notion of Citizen Kane is like logistics and techniques. Like, what the fuck? Who is this? Who's this guy? This is what Ebert said amongst a couple things, some highlights. Okay. I must confess that the symbolism of the drum failed to involve me. And here we are at the central problem of the movie. Should I, as a member of the audience, decide to take the drums as, say, a child's toy protest against the marching cadences of the German armies? Or should I allow myself to be annoyed by the child's obnoxious habit of banging on it whenever something's not to his liking? Even if I buy the wretched drum as a moral symbol, I'm still stuck with the kid as a pious little bastard. But I guess if you subscribe to the director's vision, where it's like, the kid's Hitler.
Yeah, exactly. And like, see, I think that's the thing. It's like I think there's a lot of ways you can interpret this. Like, there's a lot of times directors will say a movie is something, and it's like, I got a totally different read off of that, and it means something else to me. It's kind of like what Aronofsky was saying with Mother, whereas once you put that thing out there, it's not yours anymore, right? So even if this guy, I'm kind of with Volker and Ebert on this. Like, I don't know if I'd say the kid is Hitler, but I thought he was a real piece of shit. So I mean, if he represents fascism, I guess I'm on the right side of history there for not liking him, right?
Yes.
Standing up to the things that just aren't right, Jarrett.
No.
So, but anyways, I was just saying, like, you have these weird characters that kind of pop in, and you're like, oh, that's weird. And then you do have the weird child sexuality, which is an ever-present thing in this. And Volker talks about it. So when you have the scene where he actually he's like in the change room with his nanny, he was like, the actress didn't want to be naked. He's like, and that's fine. He's like, so we gave her some felt to cover up her privates, and he's like, and then she was happy. So that is good. He's like, it is good when the actors are happy. And he's like, there was concern about having the child Oscar that close to the genitals and acting these things. And he said, but it is the movie, and that's what we do. And you're like, okay. He does seem like a pretty like on the level guy. But when he was talking about that stuff, I was like, ooh. I was like, I think this is a little dated if he's like, well, the kids have sex. What are you going to do? And you're like, oh, gross.
Well, it's true.
Sure, but does it need to be filmed?
Well, I don't know. The Ontario Censor Board of Canada said 9. And apparently in the first cut of this film, apparently there's like a 2-hour version of this movie. And then we have the 2 hour and 40-minute version to watch here. It was banned as child pornography in Ontario for a time. And apparently it was also banned in Oklahoma County, Oklahoma, for obscenity laws portraying underage sexuality. And from Wikipedia, quote, all copies in Oklahoma City were likewise confiscated, and at least one person who had rented the film on videotape was threatened with prosecution.
I think that's a little unfair for someone who rented it, because that person probably hadn't even seen it. It's like if you went to Blockbuster, you're like, what's this? I'm going to rent it. And then the cops come and they're like, we got you. And I was like, what?
Apparently there's a documentary on the disc called Banned in Oklahoma.
He mentions that in his little interview thing, and I think what he said, he was kind of just like, whatever. He's like, they didn't want us to show the movie. He's like, we didn't really care. He's like, we weren't going to cut it, cut the scenes out. So if they didn't want to show it, he's like, we just didn't show it. Whatever. Seems like his opinion.
Fuck it. We'll do it live. Jarrett.
So do you think that Oscar is a horrible goblin monster, or what? I'm talking more about his actions. I would never degrade someone based on their appearance, Jarrett. You know that.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah,
I know that. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to root for Oscar necessarily. I feel that, I mean, as the movie gets into its like climax, there's like, I don't know, it's a seesaw, but it's never like a movie that like, wow, I love every moment of this. Like it doesn't work that way for me. It's there seems to be a distance in the material, and like I found it like all this material, like all the like abject stuff and the darkness of it at times, like that should be up my alley. But watching this, I was kind of like, I don't really know how I feel about this movie.
I wasn't sure. I was like, I think it could go either way, where you'd either be kind of on the fence like this, or I thought you'd maybe really like it, but I was like, I don't know. I was like, he could just be like whatever.
If I wanted to try hard, I could really like it and talk about its great merits.
You're welcome to if you want.
But at the same time, I'm like, this isn't one worth fighting for. I don't think.
Well,
maybe it would improve with a second viewing, but am I gonna watch this movie for a second time, or am I gonna watch some Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays? Watch some real obscenity.
There you go. You could do that. Oh. I'm with you 100%, man. Where it's like I think there are things that you could like positives you could pull from it, and I do think there's a lot of stuff to like out of it. Yeah. There's enough things of mine that I'm not on board with, but I mean, I'm not gonna like bring the movie down too much. It's just like it didn't really work for me. Yeah. Whatever.
You want to hear from people who hated this movie?
Yeah.
Well, so first up, this is because this movie, I'm like, it's not a surprise that some people this movie does not work for. But half star Dennis Quaalude.
Nice.
Cabaret has like all this plus no incest and lots of jazz hands. Just watch Cabaret again. I've never seen Cabaret, Dennis.
Is Cabaret good?
I don't know. It's that Fosse guy. Everyone likes him.
I find some troubling things in this Dennis Quaalude's half-star films. Half-star to Tindrum, half-star to Joker, half-star to What Women Want with Mel Gibson.
But that's also magic realism.
That is magic realism. Maybe Joker is too. Actually, maybe Batman. These all are. Half-star to Dark Crystal, half-star to Aziz Ansari's stand-up about political correctness. That's weird. Half-star to The Black Klansman. Jarrett, do you think that is possibly a half-star film? No. 5-star films. We got a lot of anime. We got both of the Babes. That's pretty cool. Favorite films include 1, 2, 3, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Tangerine, Jarrett.
Tangerine.
This person's a very big Tom Cruise fan. Very big.
Next, we have Cub Avenger, half a star. What are those asterisks? High-pitched screams until the TV screen shatters.
That's not bad. It's not bad. Let's see, Cub Avenger from Chicago, Illinois. Singing in the Rain, Rear Window, Out of the Past, and What's Up, Doc from 1972 are their favorite films.
Cub Avenger should not have watched Tin Drum.
No. Cub Avenger also gave half a star to Sleepaway Camp. God Told Me To.
Oh, man.
Whoa. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh.
Master and Commander.
Oh, okay.
What the hell?
Get the fuck out of my life, Cub Avenger.
But wait, okay, even more perplexing. Half a star to The Favorite and The Lobster, but half a star to Call Me By Your Name? They got one in the win pile there, buddy. 5-star films are Just Criterion's, Rafifi, La Dolce Vita, Umberto D, Cleo 5 to 7. Strange.
And one more. Half star, Steven. I wanted to physically beat the kid.
Oh,
what an annoying movie. The adult acting is over the top, idiotic, and cartoonish. There are Nazis acting like clowns, and a kid that constantly beats his drum and screams until windows break. I hate this.
What is the objection to Nazis acting like clowns? Like,
I don't know. It's not funny. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Like, they shouldn't watch Come and See, because it's got Nazis acting like it's like madness, and I don't know. Sometimes it's more real to treat things like that than grimly, I suppose.
I agree. I don't know. That's bizarre. I find it funny that this person's name is just Steven, because I'm just so unused to seeing just regular names.
Yeah.
Like Steven. They just added Johnny Mnemonic to their watch list, so Viv will be happy about that. Other half-star films include Snatch, Life of Brian, The Dark Knight Rises, Armageddon, Mulholland Drive, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. And then let's see only 8 5-star films, Jared. Wow. Andrei Rublev, Empire Strikes Back, Brief Encounter, Ordet, 2001, Star Wars, Lawrence of Arabia, and Galaxy Lords from 2018. Huh.
I got one more.
Okay.
Half star from Ryan Nichols.
Okay.
Are we sure this was a good idea? A kid beating a drum, annoyingly whining like a brat every 5 seconds, eating some chick twice his size out. How did this happen? Tearing apart eels, and just seriously, it's an insult to Days of Heaven, which is beaten out at Cannes by this, and Apocalypse Now, which it shared the Palme d'Or with. But really, what is my opinion worth? People are telling me to watch the director's cut, and maybe I'll understand it. But unless Oscar's brutally murdered on screen, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
So a lot of these people are talking about how they want to hurt this kid.
They want to hurt children.
I found the kid annoying too, but I never wanted to hurt him. I just wanted to take the drum away and tell him to grow up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Emotionally damage. I find it funny that this person has one of their 5-star films is Amarcord, which Volker Schlondorff said is one of the heaviest inspirations for the Tin Drum, Jarrett. So
I think that Fellini and Amarcord is a big influence on all things.
Oh yeah, it is. So I just find that funny. Lots of just Criterion stuff like 5 stars. Tokyo Story, Playtime, The Long Goodbye. Oh, what else we got for movies? Let's go to half-star films. Half-star to Her with Joaquin Phoenix. Half-star to Forrest Gump. A half-star to Videodrome. A half-star to Heaven's Gate. Half-star to Requiem for a Dream. Half-star to Gladiator. Half a star to Braveheart. Just not good stuff, Jer. No. Just not good. Ay, ay, ay.
Ay, ay, ay.
Ay, ay, ay.
You got any other notes here on this drum?
No, I think there's stuff to like, but there are also things I dislike. So what are you gonna do?
It's a gorgeous looking movie.
Yep.
But yeah, just enjoy. I guess it's just a movie to watch. It's like, oh, I'm glad it's off the list.
Yep.
I've now seen the best picture winner for foreign film of 1979.
Wow. So, you've been looking for that for a long time, haven't you?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
After the break, We will crawl back into the womb.
Huh?
Get all gooey.
Excuse me?
And call it a day. Eat that roasted potato out in the field of the womb.
Excuse me?